meeting to order as we have quorum. And I'm going to just do a quick roll call here so that we know everybody's in attendance. So I'm going to go across the screen. We've got Shannon Wharton and Andre Bachon from administration. And then as the members of the committee, we've got Bruce Prestige. So you're on, Bruce. You can hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. Brian Lupachinski.
Yep.
And Curtis Brownlee.
Yep, I can hear you.
And Marianne Chichak.
Yes.
Okay, very good. So we have quorum. We'll start with the adoption of the agenda. Can I get a motion to adopt the agenda?
I'll make that motion, John.
Yep, that motion to adopt the agenda. And go ahead, Andre.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I have one item I'd like to add to the agenda.
Oh, okay. Councillor Prestige, would you mind withdrawing that motion?
I withdraw that motion.
Okay, thank you. So any additions to the agenda?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I would like to add hosting a 2022 air race at Wyzadu.
Okay. All right, so that's going to be added under, gosh, it's hard going back and forth between screens here. That's going to be added under what? Where's my agenda gone? Here we go. So we'll do that under item section 5.
I would say under new business.
Yeah, so under section 5, so that'll be, this is numbering go 10, 11. You kind of got, yeah, so we'll put it under is under number 5 after the airside infrastructure reclassification. Okay, with that, I'll ask for are there any further additions? Okay, hearing none, I'll ask for a motion to adopt the agenda as amended.
It's Bruce again. I'll make that motion to adopt the agenda as amended.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Motion on the floor from Councillor Prestige. And I got to get back to my screen here. So since I don't see any cameras, I will just go down the roll here. So Councillor Prestige?
In favor.
Okay, Mr. Lubczynski?
Yep, in favor.
Mr. Brownlee?
Sorry, looking for my mic. In favor.
Ms. Chichak?
In favor.
And that motion is carried. So I'm also getting a message from Andre and Shannon. I'm getting a message from Paul Chevet that he can't get on. So could somebody send him a link? All right, with that, we will start the agenda here. So business rights, airport lease rate comparison. Andre, are you going to take us through this? Andre, I can't hear you.
I'm here.
Okay.
Okay.
John, we didn't approve the minutes.
Oh, did I skip? I don't like electronic meetings. All right, sorry. Item 3.1 is approval of the minutes. So that's May 20th of 2021 minutes. Does anyone see any errors or omissions in the minutes for that? And if not, can I get a motion to accept the minutes?
Yeah, I can make that motion to accept the minutes there from the May meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Lubachinski. The motion on the floor to accept the minutes. Any discussion? I don't hear any, so I will call the roll again if I can find my screen. So, Councillor Prestige.
In favor.
Mr. Lubachinski.
In favor.
Mr. Brownlee.
In favor.
Ms. Chichak.
In favor.
Oh, and Mr. Chevet, you're here. Did you hear that motion or?
I just got on, so I did not.
Okay, it's just an approval.
He
minutes,
wasn't
so
at the
that-
meeting.
Okay, so
Okay, now I can't
I did-
hear. What the hell?
and
Mr.
Chevet, your mic.
Mr. Chevet was not at that meeting.
Okay, very good. With that, go to approval of that motion carried. And with that, we'll go to
Can I
approve.
just do a point of order?
Please go ahead.
So either was I, but you can still vote on the minutes, even if you weren't there, if that's a motion to be put forward.
That's correct. Okay, so Mr. Chevet, you here's the motion though. The motion was to just vote on the minutes of the Airport Advisory Committee meeting, May 20th, 2021.
So in favor.
Okay. So now we're on to the Airport Advisory Committee meeting minutes for 15 July 2021. Does anyone see any errors or omissions there? And if not, I'll accept the motion to approve those minutes.
It's first, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of the July 15th, 2021 meeting.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Prestige. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. Councillor Prestige,
In favor.
Mr. Lipchinsky,
In favor.
Mr. Brownlee,
In favor.
Ms. Chichak,
In favor.
and Mr. Chevet.
In favor.
Okay, so that's carried. Now we're into the business arising. So that is the airport lease rate comparison. Andre.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, committee members. Although the report says at the last committee meeting, we missed a couple meetings. At a former meeting, I'll say, administration was tasked with getting comparable airport lease rates within the province. We were able to get similar sized airports, 8 of them, 8 airports. Grand Prairie, a little bigger than Wyzadu, but we have their rates, and the reason we included their rate is it is comparable to the CYZU rate at $2.75, which is the highest rate that we found in the province, comparable to the city of Grand Prairie. Rocky Mountain House hangar rates $1.11 a square meter. Slave Lake $1.40. Edson $1.60. Given that Edson and Slave Lake are the direct competition for Wyzadu, administration identified that we are a little bit above the competitors. I should also add that there was a request for administration to provide taxation rates with comparable airports, but getting those tax rates from the other municipalities is proving to be a little more onerous and time consuming. So the tax rate will come at a later meeting. So the recommendation is that the Airport Advisory Committee accepts the RFD as information.
Okay. Any questions on the presentation here?
So this was, I do.
Go ahead, Mr. Lipchinsky.
So we got some information now, background on some lease rates here, and we're seeing Woodlands County / Whitecourt at $2.75 square meter, which is comparable to City of Grand Prairie with other relative communities at a lower rate. So would it come out of this committee to make a recommendation to council to have a review of the rates at the airport?
Yes, it would.
So we could put that motion forward then, or how does that go, I guess?
Yeah, you like if you feel that when you say review the rates, I mean we have the rates in front of us. So what exactly would the motion be? To lower the the council lower the rates or what?
That is correct. So I don't know if Andre has information, like, do we have interested vendors looking at leased land that are maybe possibly turned away at the airport due to the present rates? So recommendation, if Andre could advise us of that, and then if we move forward with a motion of council looking at these rates and amending for the airport here locally.
Through the chair, every now and then we do get inquiries on lease rates. I would say 1 or 2 a year. Nothing very serious over the last couple of years. If the committee was to look at lease rates, my recommendation would be to be in the ballpark of Slave Lake and Edson. As I mentioned, they are our direct competition. Edson $1.60 a square meter for both commercial and private. Slave Lake $1.40 for private and $2.25 for commercial. And then they have the $4.95 for non-aviation, but they're basically the only ones that have the non-aviation rate.
Okay, well the non-aviation rate, is that not the ground side rate?
No, from what I gathered, it was nothing to do with aviation. Where at Wyzadu we have a fuel supplier that is commercial but not aviation, but it is related to aviation. So it would be, if somebody sets up a water distillery plant or something like that, not related at all to aviation.
Okay.
Is the information I was given from Slave Lake.
Would a car rental agency be considered aviation?
It all depends. You could stretch it that it's related to the airport supplying rental vehicles for aircraft coming in. There would have to be some definition written as to what non-aviation would mean.
Right. And I noticed that the ground side lease rates are actually considerably higher than the air side lease rates that are there. Along with the non-aviation lease rate, that's considerably higher than the commercial or private rate at Slave. So maybe a little more checking into what that would be prudent. Are there any other questions before we move a motion to look at this a little more in depth? Okay, so Mr. Lubachinski, you wanted to make a motion then?
I had my hand raised.
Mr. Chairman?
Sorry, I'm not on my screen here. I'm looking at my agenda. So I moved hand up, Mr. Chevet?
Curtis.
Oh, Curtis, go ahead. Go ahead.
So I guess my biggest question was on the air side, and especially in Slave Lake where they've got private hangars and commercial, and even in Edson, if we're going to be comparable, do they tax differently? Do they have different mill rates where one is commercial and then one is like an other where it is a private hangar?
Through the chair, you're referring to tax rates?
Well, yeah, I'm just like, if you guys would have got this information for the lease rates, I'm wondering if you got the information for the tax rates. Do they, pardon me, do they have a different tax rate between commercial and private?
We don't have the tax rates for Slave Lake or Edson, but hopefully we have them for the next meeting.
The next meeting will be a new board.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Brownlee. Ms. Chichak.
Thank you. I got a question. I recognize that it would be a new committee that'll be attending the next meeting, but if we're looking at these rates and digging and diving in a little bit further, I agree with whoever spoke prior to me. It would be nice to have the mill rates attached to them, but also a more in-depth RFD that would show the advantages and disadvantages of decreasing the lease rate for all lease lots. Just that the committee, especially being a new one, will have a better appreciation and understanding for what they're trying to make a recommendation on and understanding the process, if that makes sense. And I don't know, Andre, if that's a possibility through the chair to have a more in-depth RFD done, as opposed to just a one-pager that really summarizes it and really doesn't reflect any information that committee members would need to make an educated and wholehearted recommendation forward.
Through the chair to the committee, if that's the committee's request, we can do that. The last request was just for the lease rates.
Okay, thank you. And Ms. Chichak, I think, and Mr. Lubchinsky as well, with regard to the kind of the difference between the airside commercial and even private, and is this something that Woodlands want to look into on the lease rates is striking a private rate, because I don't think anywhere on the airport right now you can actually build a private hangar that I'm aware of. And if you're trying to get development, so I guess my recommendation would be whoever makes the motion, that the motion includes the tax rates and the tax structure around private versus commercial, airside, non-airside. And I think another important thing to note in these lease rates is, are the lots serviced? Do they have access to water and sewer? And the last one would be, how they're taxed and how they're classified as in the tax structure. Did I leave anything out? Sorry, Ms. Chichak, go ahead. You're muted still.
Famous last words of 2020 and 2021.
Yeah.
Is it possible to add still the advantages and disadvantages of looking and changing lease rates as well? Because I think you need to look at the whole picture when you're looking at this. And if you have new members on here, they're not going to have kind of a clue what they're considering. And I think when this report was prepared on a lease rate comparison, the reason was to take a look at to whether the rates here are fair and equitable. Would they generate increased potential investment in the airport if they were reduced? Those are the kind of things that I think perhaps members would like to see, is those advantages and disadvantages. And to me, I see advantages perhaps of looking and lowering the lease rate, but I'm not looking at the whole picture. And I think it's someone like Andre or someone else at the airport that would be able to provide information that this committee can have a wholesome conversation. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Chichak. Mr. Brownlee, you have your hand up.
So yeah, I was going to speak to this at the end of the meeting, but it's in our faces right now. So one of the things I've actually purchased my hangar this year, so I am an owner out at the airport now, and I'm just noticing that there's some pretty significant increases in taxes in the last 10 years. In 2010, the property taxes for the 3 hangars where I am were $1,700. In 2010, they went to $4,900. So the mill rate went from 6.44 to 11.17. That's 185% increase in 10 years. And it was less than 10 years. It just, when they changed airside to limited commercial, every property on that airport became a limited commercial building. So that's where everything got dropped into now. So the rates out there for taxes are ridiculous. I really don't think you're going to attract any new business at that airport with mill rates that high. And especially not, and sorry, just another point, especially not considering the difference between somebody that's out there for pleasure and somebody that's out there making a buck. Like $1,700 a year for taxes, like that, I think that's about my share right now. That's a pretty good chunk of change just to park my plane. I agree there's a runway there, but there's also taxiways that have been promised since those 3 hangars were built. So that's over 10 years ago now, that there would be a taxiway put in there, and still nothing has happened. In fact, in front of those 3 hangars, it was so bad and nothing was done that the 3 owners of the hangars got together and paid to put their own gravel in front of it because nothing was happening.
Mr. Brownlee, we'll try and keep it to the structure of the tax thing that's on there. I know it's easy to go down the historical road, but we're trying to move forward. So, Ms. Chichak, you had your hand up.
I did, and I don't want to belabor the point, but I think that's why it's really important that we take a look at the mill rates and do that comparison. And to my colleague's point that he brought up, Slave Lake's mill rate is higher than Woodlands County for their airport, I believe, if I remember right, going off of memory. But I think that's where that comparison gives you a little bit of a perspective as to where everything is, to have that discussion at a later date. Once you have all that information in front of you, right now it's really easy to be in favor or against something, but we don't have all the facts in front of us to make those types of, I'm going to say, well-informed recommendations. And with that, I will close. And I will make that motion, Mr. Chair, as you'd indicated, but adding in the advantages and disadvantages as well of making changes to the lease rates.
Okay. So there's a motion on the floor, and Ms. Chichak, we need the whole motion so that administration's really clear on what exactly we're doing here.
Absolutely. So I'm bringing a motion forward, Mr. Chair, that administration prepare an RFD for the next airport committee meeting that would outline and further the airport lease comparisons, bringing in to account other municipalities' mill rate as per the list here, advantages and disadvantages of changing the lease rate, along with, Mr. Chair, you had brought up another point you wanted to see that I'd like to add into the motion. It had to do with private versus.
Yeah, the further inspection, I guess, of private versus commercial lease rates and lots, and the issue of whether or not the lots are serviced or have access to water and sewer. And then the third one was the ground side, air side, or non-commercial, that we clarify that because I'm kind of thinking that ground side is the same as non-aviation.
Okay, so if we can somehow summarize that, or it's a very lengthy motion, but I think it's important for the next committee that they have that information. So whoever's recording that, do they have the ability then to capture everything that's been put forward?
I'm just going to check that. Andre, or is that Shannon?
That will be Shannon that's taking the minutes, but she's got it.
She says got it.
Okay, Thank you.
All right, so we have a motion on the floor, and we're speaking to the motion now at this point. Mr. Lubczynski, I saw that you had your hand up at one point before the motion went on the floor. So did you have anything to add to speaking to the motion or anything, or?
No, it was taken care of there, John, so all good.
Okay, excellent. All right, any other questions or sorry, anyone speaking to the motion? I don't see anybody, so I'll call the question. Councillor Prestige.
In favor.
Gosh, I've lost my screen with my participants in it. Hang on a minute. There we go. Mr. Preston, Mr. Lubachinski,
Yeah, in favor.
Mr. Brownlee,
In favor.
Ms. Chich.
In favor.
Okay, Mr. Chevet.
In favor?
Okay, very good. That'll take us to our next item, and I'm leaving the video screen again here. Lease rate comparison, standard 325 training.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, administration was asked to investigate training needs for requirements regarding standard 325 for our heliports, the Canadian aviation regulation in reference to Wyzadu. We did do some research on the requirements. We also talked to a couple aviation consultants that we use for different things. Both identified the same, that given that CYZU does not have a heliport, standard 325 training is not required. And there are very few airports in Alberta that have staff trained in 325. If we were to go down the path of getting the training, it's not readily available, and to have our staff trained would cost roughly $11,000. Recommendation is that the Airport Advisory Committee accepts the RFD as information.
Okay, thanks, Andre. Mr. Brownlee, you've got your hand up. Go ahead.
When you talked to your advisors, did you tell them how many helicopter movements you have at the Whitecourt Airport compared to fixed wing?
Through the chair to committee member Brownlee, yes. They were both familiar with the number of helicopter movements we have, and that the number of helicopter companies that are at the airport.
Okay, it just seems like it would be justified because of how many rotary, it seems like, operate out of Whitecourt Airport.
Okay. Does anyone else have a question on this? So, Mr. Brownlee, your hand is still up. Are you?
Sorry, John.
Okay. Mr. Prestige.
Even we don't have a heliport with the amount of movements we have with helicopters, would it benefit our staff to have that training?
Through the chair to Councillor Prestige, I kind of doubt it because it has to do with movements and requirements for a heliport. We do have NAVCAN flight services that deals with aircraft going in the air, so I would have a hard time justifying $11,000 training for something we are being told we don't need.
Okay.
Okay, so I guess my only question would be when you read the TP 312 regulations for the airport. Sorry, actually, it's CARS Part 3 on heliports. And you read through the intro of that, there's actually a section in there that states that these regulations are meant to complement those in 312, in TP 312. And I'm trying to figure out why the experts here have recommended that it seems that if they form part of the regulations, why there's no training on them or no, they're treating them like they're not part of it. So I don't understand that part. And I don't know which experts did you talk to?
So we talked to HM Aero. We talked to I can't think of their name off the top of my head. They did do an assessment of Wyzadu, which was presented to the committee. And we also talked to, I can't remember their name, but they are a training company based out of Red Deer. And their main training is to do with setting up heliports, training for heliports, and helicopter operations. And the three of them told us for our operation, 325 was not needed.
Okay, Mr. Chevet, you have your hand up. Go ahead, please.
Well, based on what I've heard to date, I would make a motion that we accept this information.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chevet. Motion on the floor from Councillor Chevet to accept his information. Any discussion on that motion? Mr. Lukashinsky, go ahead. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm hovering over your thing here and you popped up. Your mic's not open. So with the, I don't see any hands up, so I'll call the question. Councillor Prestige.
In favor.
Councillor Prestige. Okay. Mr. Lukashinsky.
In favor.
Mr. Brownlee.
In favor.
Ms. Chichak.
In favor.
Mr. Chevet.
In favor.
Thank you. Okay, that brings us to new business. So the airport lands logging sale. Andre, you're up again.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, committee members, as part of a court order in 2019, Woodlands County undertook clearing all the standing trees within the airport lands. In the end of 2019, all the stumps were pulled, all the slash was piled, and in order to eliminate reforestation, the logging lands are going to need to be broken seeded. A plan moving forward on this will be presented at the next AAC meeting. In order to fund the land breaking and the seeding, administration is proposing to log the airport lands located outside the fenced area. And there's a diagram attached identifying where those are. Consists of approximately 90 hectares. Should this proposal be approved, administration would ensure that the required setbacks from the river bank edge would be maintained. Once the forest is logged, it would be left and allowed to regrow. The revenue would be allocated to the breaking of the land within the fenced area. So that would be breaking, seeding, and we would seed it to grass. Estimated revenue based on what we received in 2019 is $100,000. And the recommendation is that the Airport Advisory Committee recommends to Woodlands County Council to proceed with the tendering of the logging of the remaining airport lands located outside the fenced area, and that the funds generated be allocated to the breaking and seeding of the lands within the airport authority. I should also add that I know there has been some concern since we cleared the airport lands about snow drifting on Highway 32. Valid concern, however, as far as the airport, and I know this is going to sound callous or flippant or something like that, but you know, Highway 32 is not maintained by the county, not maintained by the town. Snow drifting really not a concern. If there are issues with the maintenance on Highway 32, then we should forward that to LEDCOR to ensure that they are paying closer attention if there is drifting going on.
Okay, Thank you, Andre. Any questions on this? Nobody? Okay. I'm curious, where did the idea, actually, Councillor Chauvet, I see you got your mic on. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, I didn't see any other hands up. I was just going to make a motion to approve the recommendation provided by administration.
Okay. So I'm sorry, did you make that motion?
Correct. I just,
Okay.
I was going to, and then you, anyway, it's, yes, that's
Yeah.
my motion to accept the recommendation.
Oh, motion on the floor from Mr. Chauvet. Is there any discussion on that motion? Okay, seeing none, I'll call the question. Councillor Prestige.
In favor.
Mr. Lupachinski.
Yeah, in favor.
Mr. Brownlee.
In favor.
Mayor Chichak.
In favor.
Mr. Chauvet.
In favor.
Okay. That is passed. We are on to airside infrastructure reclassification.
I believe we missed one. It should be the COPA 2023 National Convention or Conference. Yeah.
We did miss one. That's my fault. I'm again flipping back and forth here. So yeah, the COPA 2023 National Convention. Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman,
Chair.
committee members, in June of 2021, Wyzadu hosted the Northern Alberta Fly-In.
1 minute here. I'm just going to recognize Mayor Chichak. Go ahead, Mayor Chichak.
I just wanted to raise this, and I'm not too sure, but Mr. Chair, is there a conflict with you being a part of COPA?
That's
intended or perceived?
No, that's a good question, and I can't excuse myself out of this. It is, from what I understand, because they're volunteer positions. If I was a director with COPA, I think it would be a problem, but as it's a volunteer thing and just a member of the organization, I don't think it is. But for the sake of not causing any issues, I will go ahead and declare pecuniary interest, and I can remove myself. And I think
I'm also a member.
So the sad part about it is that we do not have quorum to vote on this.
that's right.
And I don't know how you get around it. It's just that it's
so,
that perceived conflict.
No, I understand the concern, and but we also have, and I think Mr. Brownlee pointed out that he is a member of COPA as well. So pretty much, if you're a pilot, you're a private pilot, you're a member of COPA. So
okay.
It's a little difficult to get around. I don't know how to liken this to anything.
I don't see as a financial gain for anybody from COPA to be hosting the event. Maybe I'm wrong on that.
And I wouldn't know. I just raised it just because I knew that our chair was a member. I didn't know that anyone else was, and I wasn't doing it to be ignorant. I just I will raise that too with council members as well, just to make sure that they have the opportunity to say there is or there isn't. And if you guys stay, that's fine as well.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor Chichak, and I understand where you're coming from. I completely get it. Is there anything from administration that would be an issue, or?
I don't believe there's a potential gain to either of the members. There's, it would simply be a recommendation to council to proceed or to move forward in applying for the 2023 event. So at this point, I don't think there would be a conflict. But if Shannon is listening and she wants to add comment, she might have a better idea on that.
Okay. just before Shannon gives comment, I see that Mayor Chicha, oh, you just hold your hand down, so I'll recognize Mr. Brownlee.
The way I understand the COPA event also, the county can't request it. The COPA Association has to request it. So we, as the Whitecourt Flying Club, COPA 185, we're the ones that have to actually recommend it. Or, sorry, ask for it.
Through the chair, Woodlands County is also a member of COPA. In discussions. Sorry, what was that?
Sorry, you have a pecuniary interest too then. So yeah,
So,
this is the issue. So I think, but I think we've put it that to rest for the moment. So
okay, I'll leave it at that.
okay, so is there any objection to continuing with that item? Okay, I don't see any, so go ahead, Andre, continue. Oh, Mayor Chichak, did you have something?
I was just gonna say it's up to you guys to stay. It's not that we are against it. I just was raising a point and that was it.
Yeah, well, and again, I know with pecuniary interest, you basically gotta seek a legal opinion sometimes, and I'm not, I don't have my lawyer over my shoulder, unfortunately. So at the moment, let's go ahead and continue. Andre?
All right. So in June 2021, Wyzadu hosted the Northern Alberta Fly-In, which was a great success from the point of view of Woodlands County and the group that participated. On the heels of the event, we had a debriefing with one of the organizers of the fly-in, which led to discussions regarding the COPA events such as the 2021 National Fly-In having been virtual, and the 2022 is being held in Quebec. As we talked about it, discussions turned to the 2023 event, which is due to be held in Western Canada, and has discussed with other local groups regarding the possibility of hosting the 23 event. However, input from the Airport Advisory Committee on considering hosting the 23 event is crucial in pursuing the venture. Obtaining the rights to host the 2023 National COPA event would provide Woodlands Airport and Woodlands County and the town of Whitecourt with massive exposure. Our recommendation is that the Airport Advisory Committee endorses the pursuit of hosting the 2023 COPA National Conference, and that the topic be a regular item on the Airport Advisory agenda pending conclusion of the venture.
Okay, any questions on this one? Okay, I'm gonna go with Mr. Lukachinski first. Go ahead.
Yeah, so just for clarification, this would be a fly-in event, correct there, Andre?
Through the chair, you are correct. It would be a 3-day event at the airport, yes.
And I'm taking it would be similar to, I don't want to say air show, but there wouldn't be no restrictions to the runway. Not just coming from the air tanker side of things, right? That there would still be free movement of resources in and out.
For the most part, there would be, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Brownlee.
Just for a little information also, we would probably expect well in excess of 200 plus airplanes for something like this. So that would be underwing camping, that would be hotels in town, outsourcing for maybe events to go golfing, to go visit the ANC mill, anything to keep people entertained. This is a very large event. It is not a small event.
Okay, thank you. Mayor Chichak, go ahead.
Mr. Chair. Being a big supporter and proponent of tourism for the region, I think this type of event is an awesome one to endorse and bring forward to the airport and for Woodlands County. And with that, I'll make the motion that the Airport Advisory Committee endorse the pursuit of hosting the 2023 COPA National Conference, and that the topic be a regular item on the AAC agenda pending conclusion of the venture.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Mayor Chuchak. The motion is on the floor. Any discussion on the motion? I don't see it. Councillor Prestige, go ahead.
I'm just concerned, do we have the infrastructure to handle this event?
Through the chair to Councillor Prestige, we have been exploring that. We do have a couple of years to get everything in place if we are chosen. We've had some preliminary discussions with other airports in the area, and it could be a joint venture. We do have a lot of grass area that can park a lot of aircraft. Would mean having the tie downs for them, but overall, from what I was told from one of the COPA directors, they feel we would be a good location.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we're in the middle of a vote here, so there's I've ended the sorry, this is discussion on the motion. Mr. Brownlee, do you want to speak to the motion?
No, I'm good.
Okay, I don't see your hands up, so I'll call the. Okay, I'll call the question, and Councillor Prestige.
In favor.
Mr. Lupaszynski.
In favor.
And I hope I'm saying your last name correctly.
Oh yeah, all good. Yeah.
Okay, good. Mr. Brownlee.
In favor.
Mayor Chuchak.
In favor.
Councillor Chauvet.
It's Chauvet. Sorry.
Well, Chauvet.
Je suis d'accord. I'm in favor.
All right, very good. That motion is carried. Now we get to the airside infrastructure reclassification on pages 13 and 24. Go ahead, Andre.
Mr. Chairman, committee members, as recommended by the Airport Advisory Committee, Woodlands County Council passed a bylaw to close 3 roadways which are on airside of the airport property. Initially, the proposal was to have the areas redesignated as aprons. However, in reviewing TP 312 documents, administration obtained the services of an aviation consultant in determining the appropriate designations for the areas along with the designation of apron 3. When we got into looking at it, apron 3 is basically taxiway, so we put that in. HM Aero Aviation Consulting was procured to review the existing proposed closures. The report from HM Aero Aviation is attached, and basically the report identified that apron 3 should be redesignated as an extension of taxiway A. Roadway segment C, which is being closed, is to be redesignated as a private taxiway. Roadway segment B, which is being closed, to be redesignated as taxiway E. Roadway segment D, which should be A actually, which is being closed, to be redesignated as taxiway F, and the current westernmost section of apron 3 to be redesignated as taxiway G. As identified in the recommendations, administration will include the next steps identified in the redesignation for the 2022 capital budget in the amount of $45,000. Given that the aprons are designated areas to park aircraft, designating these identified airways as taxiways will eliminate the confusion, possible conflicts on the airport property, and realign operations at CYZU with TP 312. Recommendation is that the Airport Advisory Committee accepts the RFD along with the HM Aero report as information.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions on this one? And I gotta get back over to my screen here. Mr. Brownlee.
So in front of apron 1, there is a taxiway that goes all the way down in front of what you've got designated C and B. I'm looking at page 17. Are those is that gonna be left as a taxiway? Or is it gonna be given a designation? Or...
Sorry, can you repeat that?
So I'm looking at figure 1 on page 17. And where it says apron 1 in front of the terminal building, in the lower left-hand corner, where the Airborne building is, Woodlands County has a taxiway that goes all in front of all of those hangars up to and including past taxiway B. So I'm just having a hard time understanding where, because you're going to call it taxiway A, taxiway B, taxiway C, where does the split between C and B?
So if I could, so the current apron 3 runs from basically Airborne to, I believe that's Helisource.
But that's the taxiway. There is another taxiway south of that one, in front of the B and C taxiways. Because if you're looking at B, and to where the top of the orange ends, to the left there, those are the 3 hangars, and there's a taxiway in front of those hangars.
Right.
So I'm just trying to understand where your split is, because C cannot get to 3 unless it goes to the left or to the right.
So when we had those discussions, we would essentially have to extend B and C to what's currently apron 3. So the next steps in redesignating all this would be to have the consultants come out, do a physical investigation, some surveying, and come up with the solid plan on the redesignation of all those areas. So this is a preliminary report. So next step is looking at what would physically have to be done to make all this work.
Okay, I was just trying to get clarified there. Thank you.
So just to clarify, Andre, this is for information only. We're not actually doing anything yet at this time until we get a little more information back from the consultant, correct?
Mr. Chairman, so what we'll be doing is budgeting $45,000 in the 2022 capital budget to come up with the plan on the redesignation, and then in 2023 we would budget and move forward with required work such as the signage, the lights, and notifications. So we're essentially looking at a 2-year plan on implementing this.
Okay. Any other questions, Mr. Brownlee?
Oops, sorry, forgot to take my hand.
Okay, I'm just going to ask a question here, and I guess I'm going to reference, you've got figure 1, and this is kind of what's confusing is you currently have A, B, and C there. So let's go down so that everybody's following along the same thing here. And I don't know what page that is because I'm too big. Page 8. So this is page 9 of the report, page 11 of the PDF that's attached through the porthole if you're looking at it. So you should see figure 3, recommended movement areas and identifiers. And so you're looking at apron 1 tying into that taxiway alpha and just continuing straight on, like paralleling 1.1 and 2.9. And I think there's a couple of areas left out of this. And that area that Mr. Brownlee was talking about is right in front of Airborne. There's an apron there as well. So if you're looking at all this reclassification, there's an apron there. There's an apron that's in front of those 3 hangars, and there's an apron that's in front of the other 3 hangars. So you might want to, if you're identifying all these, you might want to pick those up as well and get this all in one fell swoop.
Mr. Chairman, that we would do all that at the same time, yes.
Okay. All right, now I have to get back to my screen where I can see everybody. Any other questions? I don't see any. Can I get a motion to accept for information? Mr. Brown?
I'll make a motion that the Airport Advisory Board accept that the Airport Advisory Committee accepts the RFD along with the HM Aero report as information.
Very good, thank you. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, I will call the question. Councillor Prestige?
In favor.
In favor, I heard. Mr. Lupachinski?
In favor.
Mr. Brownlee?
In favor.
Mayor Chichak?
In favor.
And Councillor Chauvet?
In favor.
Sorry, I meant Chauvet. So, Andre, you had your hand up.
Roll the R.
Just before we move on, just as a side note, there has been a discussion in the past regarding PL ratings on the taxiways. Just a side note of information, we do have a consultant that is going to look at the PL ratings on the aprons as part of another project. So we will have a report hopefully for the next committee meeting on PL's ratings and how we will move ahead on having a uniform PL rating on the taxiways.
I'm going to head off maybe a question that people are rattling around their head because we always use too many abbreviations. What's a PL rating?
Pavement load rating. So what the capacity of the taxiway is for carrying aircraft, or what size aircraft it can carry.
Okay. And I'm, you know, a lot of people have been on this committee a while, but I hate abbreviations. Sometimes they get confused. So I just thought I'd throw the question out there. So thank you, Andre. That's fantastic. That was actually a question that I forgot to ask about this particular thing. With that, motion carried to accept that for information. I will try and find my agenda again. There it is. And we're on to the last item under new business, which was, because I didn't write it down, I'm sitting in front of a computer screen. Andre.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, committee members. Woodlands County has been approached with the possibility of hosting a 2022 air race at Wyzadu. The Canadian International Air Race Society is made up of like-minded aviation businesses and enthusiasts. This would be a unique opportunity to be at ground zero of Alberta's history. The success of the Whitecourt Air Show attracted international attention, and the promotion group is now in the final stages of bringing the Reno National Championship Air Race to Canada. making Alberta the capital of air racing across the country. By combining the already anticipated air show with the first ever air race in Canada,
Okay, I'm just going to interrupt you, Andre, for a minute. Mayor Chichak, you have your hand up. Go ahead.
Oh, I just had
And
my
you're
hand
still
up for
muted.
when Andre's finished, and then I have a question.
Oh, okay. Sometimes people have points of order, so they throw their hand up, so I recognize them right away. So, okay, with that, I'll wait and
Appreciate it.
No, I'll wait. So go ahead, Andre. Sorry for interrupting you.
No problem. So this would be the first ever air race in Canada. It would attract not only airshow fans, but also motocross fans, car racing fans, and fans of everything with an engine that goes fast. There's also discussions on including lawn tractor races during this air race. So the Reno races attract millions of tourist dollars every year. It is the benchmark for air racing, and the plan is to achieve the same for Canada. The proposal is for 2 races. The first race proposed will take place in Grand Prairie, June 3rd, 4th, and 5th, with the second race taking place in Whitecourt, June 10, 11, and 12. So the class of aircraft that's being looked at to bring here was the F1. If you Google the Reno Air Show and follow the links to the F1, there are videos identifying that they're basically home-built planes. They have, I'll simplify it to Volkswagen type engines, air-cooled, and the plane and the pilot have to weigh a minimum of 500 pounds, and they set up I can't remember if it's a 2 or 3 mile circuit, and they fly this circuit and they do their racing. Wyzadu's been identified as a perfect location for it. There's not a lot of residential. It's easy for planes to come in if they are having issues during the race. So the recommendation is that Airport Advisory Committee recommends to Woodlands County Council to support the promotion of the F1 Reno type races for June 10, 11, and 12 of 2022.
Okay, I'm super excited about that. Go ahead, Mayor Chichak.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Andre, that was a fantastic presentation. And I'm just going to echo what the chair had said. I'm very excited about this, and I'll echo a few RFDs back when I talked about tourism and what these type of events do for your community, for Woodlands, for Whitecourt, and for our region as a whole in terms of bringing a presence to it. It also has a potential for those that are attending that aren't from within this area to look at possible potential future investment in the region from a business perspective, which is huge. There's more benefits to this than there are disadvantages. I will say when I used to camp out at Lac St. Anne, Darwell has their tractor push or pull or whatever in the heck it is, but I remember going to the corner store to try and get some pot, and I had to literally, in a small town of Darwell, park about 4 or 5 blocks away. Is these type of events, the public loves them, the region loves them, and I think we would get people from all over the province to attend something like this, and it really probably would put Woodlands County in and on the map in a bigger perspective and be good as a whole for the whole region. So with that, Mr. Chair, I would like to make the motion as Andre outlined in his presentation at the end.
Okay, so there's a motion on the floor from Mayor Chichak, and anyone speaking to the motion, I'm going to go with Mr. Lupachinski and then Mr. Brownlee after.
Well,
Go
can
ahead.
we ask questions before the motion there?
Well, the motion's on the floor, but you're speaking to the motion, so you can ask a few questions. We'll get flexible. So
Okay. So I just want similar to my last question, similar to an air show, that there will still be opportunities that runways will be open for access for tankers in and out and rotary wing operations, correct?
Through the chair, all depending if there is a race going on, the air zone would be closed, so it might be intermittent access to the runway.
Okay, so as details of the event would come down, we could have discussions on that then, similar to the air show what we've done in the past.
Through the chair, that's correct.
Thank you.
okay, anyone speaking to the motion? Mr. Brownlee.
My question was, it's the Reno air races, so it's the circuit races, or is it stole races as well?
Sorry, I missed the second part of that.
Are the stole races, the short takeoff and landing races included in that? Because that would be awesome filler. If they just are going to do the Reno races, we could probably try and organize a stole competition on the exact same time. That would go over really well.
Through the chair, as far as I know, it is at this time, the request was just for the circuit race. But as we go down that road, that's something we can look at.
Okay, thank you, Andre. Okay, motion still on the floor. Any other questions? Sorry, any other one speaking to the motion? I don't see any microphones open or hands up, so I'm going to go ahead and call the question. Councillor Prestige.
In favor.
Mr. Lupachinski.
In favor.
Mr. Brownlee.
In favor.
Mayor Tichak.
In favor.
Councillor Chevet.
In favor.
Okay, we end up back at next meeting. And if I can jump in here just as chair, for those of you that don't understand or don't know what a stole race is, the air race is an oval, and you'll see the aircraft going overhead and past pylons and things, and it's kind of like watching a NASCAR race but in the air. Very wide circuit. The stole drag races are done right in front of you. The airplanes take off, and then they actually drag race. So you'd have one airplane on Alpha, the taxiway, and one airplane on the runway, and they would race each other to the end, stop, turn around, and then race each other back. It's a really neat event. So that's what Mr. Brownlee was getting to. Anyway, with that, we'll go to the next meeting. Mr. Brownlee, I see you've got your hand up. Go ahead.
I just had a question. It was something that I brought up a long time ago and asked administration to look into. Was actually trying to change airside back to airside like it is in the regulations and take away the limited commercial. And I don't think that's ever been brought back to the advisory board.
Okay, we can take it as an advisement for the next agenda so that we look at the zoning, but that one's going to be delicate for me, so we'll look at it for the next agenda. With that, what's the next meeting date? Have you got a proposed next meeting date, Mr. Bichond?
Mr. Chairman, at this point, I don't, pending new committee members, when all that falls into place, we are looking at the end of October. My guess is we're probably looking early December sometime.
Okay. All right, so we won't bother setting a date with the new committee and everything at this point. So, but as long as the meeting date is not to pass December, correct?
That is correct. Given the I'm trying to think of the right word, the tasks that we're undertaking right now, I think it's prudent that the committee meets more often than it has in the past, and sooner the better, to make sure we keep moving on these items that we want to pursue.
Okay, so does someone want to maybe make a motion that we have another airport advisory committee meeting no later than December based on the amount of tasking that's been given to the administration on this and the current flux of the membership and possible council as well, so. And I got to get back to my screen here. Mayor Chichak.
With this being my last airport committee meeting, I will gladly make that motion.
Thank you, Mayor Chichak. So with that, any discussion on that motion? I don't see any. I'll go ahead and call the question. Councillor Prestige.
In favor.
Mr. Lukashinsky.
In favor.
Mr. Brownlee.
In favor.
Mayor Chichak.
I'm in favor.
Mr. Chauvet.
I'm in favor.
Okay, that item is carried. And with that, we are down to adjournment. Anyone?
Move to adjourn.
There we go. Mr. Chauvet, motion to adjourn. There's no discussion on a motion to adjourn, so I'll just call the question. Councillor Preston.
In favor.
Mr. Lukashinsky.
In favor.
Mr. Brownlee.
In favor.
Mayor Chichak.
Oh, just to be different, I'll vote against that because it's my last
Ah.
meeting of the others.
There's the obstacle to everyone going home. Okay.
I think Mayor Chichak can stay as long as she wants, but I vote in favor.
Okay, very good. We stand adjourned, and yeah, for everybody that's the challenges coming up, to everybody, good luck, and hopefully we'll see everybody. Well, we won't see some people, but good luck in the future, and we'll see at the next meeting.